Well, I've spoken my piece, and I hope that I've convinced you to come out and vote this November. But if I haven't, I'd like to take one more crack at it. Because if you're not convinced by the super-PAC spending, by the attempts of the wealthy to buy this election outright, by the blatant disrespect that the right has shown our political process by stonewalling legislation and holding the government hostage, then there's probably only one reason left why you won't make the effort to vote this November. And that's that you don't think your vote matters. I mean, after all, it's a huge country, right? What can one person do?
Now let me tell you the stories of two remarkable women, one on the right and one on the left. Katherine Harris was the Secretary of State of Florida during the 2000 election and was responsible for certifying the votes there. With the rest of the country's votes in, Vice President Al Gore led the popular vote, but Texas Governor George W. Bush was virtually tied in the electoral vote, the one that would decide the election.
Florida held the remaining 25 electoral votes, which meant that whoever won the state would win the election. But when the election proved too close to call and defective ballots made counting the votes difficult, a recount was ordered. Katherine Harris demanded that the state's voting laws be obeyed to the letter, and she halted the recount after a reasonable period of time. That decision was upheld by Florida's Circuit Court, overturned by the state Supreme Court, and then reinstated by the U.S. Supreme Court, which meant that the most powerful political office on the planet, the presidency of the United States, was decided by the votes of just 537 people. That's less than the number of people in the fictional town of Mayberry. Heck, it's less than the number of people in Congress. You know, twice as many people have been executed by George Bush's home state of Texas as decided his election. You can bet those people realize that their votes count. 8 years later, another presidential election was in the works. The Democratic candidate, Senator Barack Obama, was young, charismatic, and inspirational. The Republican candidate, Senator John McCain, was mature, experienced, and a war hero. But McCain wisely understood that he was a little bit old and stuffy for the new generation of voters, so he shrewdly chose as his running mate the vivacious, folksy governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin. At first, the media was in love with her beauty queen good looks and shucky darn accessibility. But then people started to wonder if she was qualified for her prospective job, let alone for the presidency. After all, McCain was in his 70s and could potentially be incapacitated by a medical emergency, leaving Sarah Palin the single most powerful person in the free world.
Then along came a young comedian named Tina Fey. Fey was one of the not ready for primetime players on Saturday Night Live, and she began to impersonate Palin in a series of sketches. She poked fun at Palin's speech and manner, and at the bizarre answers she gave to a series of real-life questions.
Fey's impressions were so scathing that people began to second-guess McCain's choice of running mate. In fact, by the time the election was held, Palin had become a political liability, and McCain lost the election. "And I can see Russia from my house" became the joke heard around the world, and perhaps the single most influential punchline in the history of comedy.
The point is, both of these women were just doing their jobs as best they could. However, they wound up changing the world in some profound ways. Had Al Gore won the 2000 presidential election, we might have turned our attentions to global warming rather than Iraq, for better or for worse.
If Tina Fey had chosen to leave Sarah Palin alone, and then the stresses of the White House proven too much for President McCain, Sarah Palin could be President of the United States right now. It just goes to show you that one person really can make a difference, and that a handful of votes can change the future of the free world. Don't let the news tell you that the election's already decided. If we together could motivate just 537 more progressives to vote in each district that has a midterm candidate, we could potentially win every single one of those races, put the House and Senate firmly into Democratic control, and give the left a chance to prove once and for all whether or not their policies work. I'd like to see them get that chance, so that we can all have the answer to that question once and for all. So watch my videos. Make up your own mind. Then tell your families, tell your friends, and come November, get them out.